Welcome to the Prospective Doctor podcast, brought to you by Med School Coach. Pre-med and medical students alike are encouraged to tune in each week for tips on how to become a strong med school candidate, gain acceptance into the school of your dreams, and succeed on your journey toward residency and becoming a doctor.
Hello, everyone. I have a very interesting guest today, Dr. Kay Durst. And I'm just going to give her an opportunity to tell us a little bit about herself and her journey to medicine.
Great. Well, thank you so much for having me. I think this is a wonderful podcast. I love the name, and I love that you're reaching out to a lot of prospective, students and residents and everything. I think it's great. So I'm Dr. Kay Durst, and I'm board certified in family medicine. I'm a third generation family medicine doctor. I'm a mother. I have 2 teenager kids, 2 boys. So that keeps me very busy. I love boating. I love being in the garden. I also love hanging out and listening to different music. And so part of that with the family medicine is I'm also really into wellness, and that's important too, in culinary medicine. So I like that. Yeah.
That's interesting. I'll probably ask you something about culinary medicine throughout this.
Yeah. So I like that. And my journey was a little bit different. I kind of think of myself as kind of an innovator and a visionary and somebody that had some setbacks during medicine, a different journey. So I started out, like I said, I'm a third generation family medicine doctor. So my grandfather started the practice where I am now 78 years ago. But I grew up coming in the summers, and I'm in South Carolina, visiting my family and all. I grew up in Atlanta. But I actually thought I was going to be pre-med, and I did start at pre-med in the Honors College at University of South Carolina. And then I decided I didn't know if I really wanted to do medicine. And there was a lot of time, as people know, the labs, taking those lab classes were a lot of extra time. And I was struggling with, is it just because of my family that I want to do medicine, or do I really want to do medicine? And I actually majored in anthropology and did almost a minor in French. So it was totally kind of different. And I just struggled. I was on the sailing team, so it was a lot of time. And I decided, you know what, I'm going to do some different things. And my father actually said, hey, I was in medicine and I did a whole bunch of sciences, but he wished he had more liberal arts and things like that. So I said, well, I'll do that. And then later, when I graduate, I can do international business or decide to go to medicine. So that was kind of my undergraduate story. So I had a good foundation of the sciences. And not to tell you how old I am, but when I get back, I finished school and I was deciding what I was going to do, international business and all. And I actually did a quick internship at Emory University, and where I grew up in Atlanta, was right over there. And I was touring with a bunch of doctors, showing them the CAT scans. And believe it or not, it was one of the newer CAT scans. So everybody was excited about it. And I decided I really didn't want to be on the touring and marketing side. I wanted to be on the other side of the, helping people and teaching and the sciences. So I decided, okay, I do want to go into medicine. So I had to go back to school. So I went to school. In the middle of that, I was going to take some time off, and Hurricane Hugo came in South Carolina, and we lost our house and we lost everything. So that put me back a little bit, but I was able to do that. So I went back and took some of the basic science, finishing up my organic chemistry and physics, and I did that. And then I got sidetracked I lived in Puerto Rico. There's some family circumstances, and I thought I was going to live down there. And in between with colleges, I actually taught school down there and worked for Berlitz School of Languages. So I did that for a little bit and thought my whole life I'd live in Puerto Rico. So I actually applied and started off at one of the U.S. medical schools, Universidad Central del Caribe, which I have a big shout out for them, down in Puerto Rico. So I did that for a year. And then for other family circumstances, I ended up having to try to come back to South Carolina. So I ended up transferring and ended up going to the Medical University of South Carolina and graduating from there. So that was kind of that little story.
That's an amazing story. And I think that you brought up some really good points in that. Number one, life isn't linear, so you don't have to have it all mapped out. Number two, it's okay to have a non-traditional, quote unquote, major. It actually may make you a little more unique. I always tell the students, if there's any, and this sounds kind of weird coming from someone who advises the medical students and things, if there's anything else you can consider that you could possibly want to do besides medicine, try that first. And then if you still want to do medicine, then do medicine, because it's a lifetime commitment. So it's okay. You have a lifetime to discover that and to figure out what you want to do. Right. And then you mentioned a few times about family circumstances. You are a human being, for all of those listeners out there. So like we said, life happens. So it's okay. You can always pivot and do something else or transfer if you need to live your life and to support your family.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's why I was so excited to be on your podcast too, because that's why a lot of people think of it as the traditional, have to do everything traditional. And I came from a very traditional, my grandfather being a doctor and my dad, and I've pivoted a lot. And I think that's very important, for the students, starting a different school. And it wasn't easy. And I really, for you, I think it's great because I think we can reach out to the students and help them along their journey with different coaching and things like that to help support them. And I think that's wonderful. So,
absolutely.
Yeah.
So you mentioned that you're a third generation family medicine physician. Sometimes when people who have family members who are in medicine enter medical school, they try to do everything that their family members don't. So what made you actually decide to choose family medicine?
Yes. Yeah, that's true. I guess for me, what was great is I grew up with my dad and all, kind of going with him to house calls and, hanging out, when you used to hanging out in the hospital. And actually as a kid, my mentor was actually Clara Barton, who started the Red Cross. I thought I wanted to be like her. And my mom always jokes because I want to do medicine. She's like, but I was like, I don't like blood. And she's like, well, you could still be a doctor and, do that. But I really liked the part that I thought my grandfather and my dad had part of the community. And I love that they were part of the family of their patients. And, back then, instead of paying with money and insurance, they would bring shrimp and corn and, it was like a barter system. And I just thought that was wonderful. And then I also knew, being a woman and all, I knew that, talk with my mother, I said, well, I knew that I could have a career to help people, but also have my own business. This is back then when most doctors had their own business, and also take care of my family. And that to me was very important in giving back to the community. And I like family medicine, kind of like you said, is I didn't know what I was going to do. I'm very kind of surprised I'm back here at my family's practice. But I thought, well, I could do academics or family medicine. I could do policy, or I could do OBGYN, or I could do dermatology. There's such an array of things we can do in family medicine, which really drew me to that. So it was great. One thing I didn't mention is I ended up doing my residency. Actually, I was at University of Florida. So I was in South Florida. I did my residency, University of Florida in Coral Springs. And ironically, our program, after a year, they decided they wanted to rearrange it. So then I had to scramble to change. And I wanted to be in Miami. So I had another kind of setback, but went through it and ended up my second and third year University of Miami. And that was really great at Jackson Memorial Hospital. And so that was a different perspective, but it was great because I had family medicine and we had a lot of different cultures and speaking Spanish and a lot of emergencies. And it was really fun.
I love that. That's just figuring out where, like you said, life takes you, and it takes you in interesting ways and interesting places. You actually learn a lot from that. And I can definitely identify with you with family medicine because I'm a family physician as well. And I tell students it's kind of, for us who want to do a lot of things, there's a lot of opportunity to reinvent yourself over time. And you can do practice, you can do direct primary care, you can be a hospitalist, you can be in technology, you can do everything. So
yes, exactly.
Into.
Yes. And you can do it through different stages of your career. And that's, I know you wanted to ask me about some of the I'm kind of the old school doc. So it's neat. So you don't have, it's changing, especially now. There's so many changes going on. And that's even what we're doing right now. So that's so exciting to me.
Absolutely. Like I don't know about when you were in school, but when I was in school, we definitely didn't have a lot of external resources aside from our books and our classmates. I did have YouTube, so I did a lot of like YouTube Googling on certain
that's good
technology and stuff like that. And there was a blog or something that was out, a forum called a Student Doctor Network. But besides that, we didn't have much. So now there are hundreds of podcasts in different ways, and people are learning through TikTok and Instagram. So it's just a plethora of information out there. So it's just great that we're able to communicate and learn from one another.
Yeah, no, exactly. I think that's so important. Yeah, it really is. Yeah, no, when you were saying with you, when I was in med school, I mean, I remember just when I was doing my residency, we had to do the old time residency. My mom sat on the floor with me and I hand wrote to over 20 something residency programs, each mailed it and everything. Wow. And because there was not the computer, I mean, we were just starting Yahoo and things like that. So I'm kind of the old school, but it's great because I'm the older generation, but I've also done things. I've been doing telehealth. I did telehealth 3 years before the pandemic. So this is like my 5th year of telehealth. And I kind of like that too, as a visionary with where are we going in medicine. And that's exciting. Where were we in our history and how can we use those lessons for our future?
Absolutely.
At Med School Coach, we know that getting into medical school is hard. In fact, 60% of pre-meds who apply to medical school don't even get accepted. And if you want to get accepted into a top medical school, it's even harder. It's a complicated process, and even students with great grades and MCAT scores get left out. That's why more students than ever are turning to Med School Coach for admissions advising. Our advisors are all physicians and former admissions committee members, so they know exactly what medical schools are looking for. One-on-one admissions advising from Med School Coach makes all the difference. Our expert team will help you develop a game plan, prepare your application, edit your essays, and coach you for interviews. Every pre-med has a story, and we'll help you tell it so you can stand out from the crowd. Visit us online at medschoolcoach.com and use offer code PODCAST10 to save 10% up to $400 on a Med School Coach admissions advising package. You can achieve your medical school dreams, and Med School Coach can help.
And that brings me to our next question. As you mentioned, you were trained in a more traditional age of healthcare where family docs saw their own patients in the hospitals. There were no electronic medical records. And can you kind of describe what practicing was like back then? And then from there, do you like practicing more old school style or more with the technology realm?
Yeah, it's great. It is interesting, with it. And I know lately I've been seeing all these memes and all about people like, oh my God, what do we do? Going back to paper if the computer's down. So I was in the old school, like you had to remember Van Dismal and trying to write out all the orders. So it was traditional family medicine, down in Miami. We did a lot of, especially in our program, we delivered a lot of babies. I mean, a lot of babies. We did that and the paper charts. And so we had that. And then it was just known that there wasn't even such a thing as a hospitalist, which is crazy for me to think about now. So, back then I would be, I had my practice, we would write out everything. And some things that was great. One thing was interesting is I remember looking at the doctors and thinking, how are they going to know that medicine? Because you had to write out, augmented 875 BID, and you're like, wow, but you got used to it. And then we were in the old school, you'd have to get the x-rays. The x-rays were just beginning to kind of get on the computer, but they were mainly the old films. So in residency, you grab the film and go down and try to get it in front of the radiologist and all. And we had like 3 or 4 computers that just were starting to get just basic stuff on the patient, demographics and labs. And that was a good thing. But you definitely had to know how to do the old labs. Like there was the cross for the CBC and different things. So it was definitely a different time. And I would see patients and I'd get up at 5 a.m. and I'd go and I'd round to 3 hospitals and I could have up to 3 or 4 patients up to think one time I had like 13 patients in the hospital, even the ICU, and seeing like, 15, 16 patients at the house. I mean, not my house. I would do some house calls, but I mean, in the office. So, that was definitely challenging. I did that for about 6 years. And then when I moved at our other practice and more of the hospitalist, and then when I had my kids, I started letting go some of that. And I think it's good and bad. I really miss the camaraderie in the hospital. When I was there, I would see especially family medicine, we were kind of like the quarterback. I would miss my consult doctors. I'd see the orthopedic and the kidney doctor, and they taught me so much, about the patient. And I really miss the continuity of care I'd have with my patient, because if you got admitted, I already knew all their history. So it's like, I knew it was easier to admit them. But the lifestyle was very hard, getting up 3 a.m, having kids, going to the hospital. That was, a challenge. So I like that. And then nowadays, I think there's so many regulations and on the hospital. That was one of the things too that were, part of it. But I know a lot of family medicine doctors, internal medicine and OBGYNs have that nocturnist and hospitalist things that help them. But we, at our practice, my dad, he had the electronic medical records way before, I guess now, I don't know, he's at it 20 something years. He was one of the first ones that went through it. Wow. So I know he had it. And I actually had in Florida, I worked for a hospital, and then I actually owned my own private practice. So I did that for several years. But then when I joined him, we went to that, and that was the beginning of the meaningful use stages, which I think was like 10 years ago now. And I was one of the first ones to do it. So when you ask about like some of the advantages or disadvantages, I think the advantages with the computer is definitely, if you're into, which I'm very big into, quality and preventive, doing a lot of those quality measures, mammograms and getting words out and all. I think the computer is very helpful. Sending the electronic records, I think that's very good. Some of the innovations within the technology, I think, is great. And I really am excited for your audience because of the technology and the advances in technology and doctors getting involved and medical students. We're making it better for all of us, for our patients and us. And I think that's exciting.
I could not agree more. I can say I experienced a little bit of the paper. My intern year, I think, was the year where all the meaningful use things came out and we were transitioning. So we had an EMR in our clinic, but in the hospital, we didn't. So definitely trying to figure out what the consultants were writing was interesting.
Yes. Oh, no. Yeah, there's definitely, I think, mistakes. Yeah, it's always the joke. What is that,
Or flipping the book to the certain section to make sure you put it on the green so they know to come get labs and things. So it was a fun experience. And I couldn't agree more that with technology aiding us, we're able to think more about prevention and continuity of care. I will say that for the students who are listening, who are still in training, it's still important to figure out how to take a very thorough history and exam and actually document that correctly so that you can prevent copy forwarding, because that's not a good idea.
Yeah, exactly. That is the problem with that. You didn't have that as much before,
Mm-hmm.
But we had, I didn't mention, like even the old times, they had like the chart, like especially my family, because it's been around 3 generations, a lot of family doctors, you'd have one folder for the whole family. Mm-hmm. And it would just be, just the essentials, amoxicillin, sore throat, strep, amoxicillin, that's all you needed. So, it's definitely changed. And, some people say, why are you still in medicine? It's like, well, it was very different when I started wanting to be in medicine. So you do have to go back to your values and how can you pivot with it? And then how can we give back and help, the students and help everybody, help the healthcare system, especially right now.
Absolutely. Which brings me to my next question. You're just setting me up for success. So if there was one thing that you could change about the healthcare system, what would it be?
Yeah. Well, the good thing is I see it coming, so that's good. I think it's focusing more on wellness and really focusing it on the healthcare workers and the people in, and I think that's really important. And I think that trickles down into our patients, and why I think a lot of the hospitals and insurance companies and all are saying that, they're realizing how much it really costs for people to get sick and what can we do more to prevent it. And they're looking more into helping doctors, really spend that time and looking more at quality, not just how many patients you can see, and looking at that preventative. So kind of to get back with that, I think it's important is that if we could really change one thing, which is why I was so excited to be here, and thank you very much, is really to help the students and the doctors that are out. I mean, even myself, have coaches and these podcasts to give us the tools so we can help ourselves, so we can be healers again and help people heal and help people through whatever problems and reaching out in different communities. And I think that's very, very important.
I love that thought process because we are here, especially as primary care doctors, to work on wellness and prevention and healing. And for all physicians, like doctor means teacher. So we're here to teach one another. We're here to teach our patients just how to live better and more healthy lives.
Right. No, that's true. And even I know we're talking about family medicine, but you have the array of, all different doctors. They might be a neurosurgeon or other things. And I've seen a big shift, which I'm really excited about, is even a lot of the surgeons or the specialists or even the researchers, I feel like are really looking into how the technology can advance us to prevent diseases and cancers, and then also their own wellness and all too, and their patients. And I think there's a big movement in that, especially lifestyle medicine and like we talked about other avenues that I think is so important. And because you want even the OBGYNs, looking at disparities in healthcare and how to make sure we have successful OBs that have their babies and things like that. So I think it's a difficult time in medicine, but I think it's an exciting time, and I'm very excited for these students. And I know on top of pandemics and other pressures, it's there, but I think this is one of the most exciting times for them, and I'm very excited in the future for them.
Absolutely.
At Med School Coach, we know that studying for the MCAT exam can be challenging, especially for busy students on the go. That's why our team created MCAT Prep, the only all-encompassing study app built specifically for the MCAT. MCAT Prep by Med School Coach provides student access to extremely high-quality content and a personalized curriculum for free. The app has more than 250 videos, 1,000 flashcards, and 1,000 unique MCAT questions. Plus, MCAT Prep by Med School Coach allows students to create a personalized study schedule and track progress over time. You need every competitive advantage you can get to get into medical school, and now you can put the experts from Med School Coach into your pocket. It's the closest pre-med students can come to a personal tutor without spending a penny. Download MCAT Prep by Med School Coach for free at medschoolcoach.com/MCAT. Or download it directly from the Apple Store or Google Play Store. You can achieve your medical school dreams, and MCAT Prep by Med School Coach can help.
And you mentioned this a little earlier, Ian, just now about how medicine is expanding into other fields to help with wellness and promoting that, like lifestyle medicine and culinary medicine. Can you tell us a little bit about how you're involved with that?
Yes. So I'm in the process too of getting my lifestyle medicine boards. I mean, I am board certified family medicine, and family medicine focuses so much on lifestyle anyway. We talk to our patients about decreasing, tobacco and smoking and helping with weight loss and wellness. But the lifestyle is because it is reaching out to a lot of different doctors, and we're having great people come and talk about how can we really work with like plant-based foods or different foods to help reduce the diabetes or blood pressure and all. So I think that's very important. And we don't just look at the foods, we also look at our own wellness of, exercising or meditation or mindfulness and working for ourselves to be a healer so we can heal others, heal ourselves and heal others. So I think that's that's very important too. And I see it all kind of coming together, and some of the hospitals are now reaching out and having wellness teams, that are expanding to not only the doctors, the other healthcare workers, so they can be essential help with everybody. So I think it's great.
I couldn't agree more. For my final question to you, what is the best piece of advice that you've received?
Yeah. That's so good, because of all of us, we've gotten so many. I was thinking about it, and I guess I would have to see more from, I've had very fortunate. I've had a lot of support from my husband, and then it was giving me a lot of great advice, and my mom and my dad, of course. But then also really, I think with my mom is throughout all my setbacks is that, you could kind of pivot, or there was always a silver lining in it, and realize it's there. She always said, don't say the word can't, because you can make it possible and go through. And that for me has really helped throughout my different setbacks, is look at a different direction or where you want to go. And it's kind of like a new adventure. So that was kind of my advice to help me through whatever it is. So problem solving and all. So you can focus on your setback. And then as, of course, you look back through your life, you see, it was maybe the worst thing, because at the time my residency program was closing, but then it got me to where I really was supposed to be and wanted to be. And then we had a hurricane, and then I had another hurricane, and, but those things you got to keep going. So that's been very helpful.
I love that. I always love the saying that a setback is just a setup for a comeback. So
yeah, exactly.
Absolutely. Things happen for a reason, and you keep pushing.
Right. Yeah. And I think that's very important, especially for your audience, because it's so much, I feel like, pressure, for them to, do well in the MCAT and get all the sciences or apply to this certain school. And because of these different podcasts or the stories and out there, I think they're getting more people that say, hey, there isn't one way, somebody, maybe one of the student had cancer and came back, or they had their kids and came back, or they went to be a surgeon and they had a setback. And I think that that's very important, to help with everything.
Yes, I couldn't agree more. And I really appreciate you taking time to come out and speak to our audience today. If our audience members had any questions, is there any place that they can reach out to you?
Yes, they could reach out. I mean, I have a little Instagram. I don't have as much on it because I've been doing other stuff, but it's just my name, K Durst just K Durst MD. And then later I could give you like my email, especially if they have any questions. I'd love to help give back to students, especially because I had a different journey of different places and lived at a couple of different places. Maybe they have questions. And that's one question you had asked me kind of before the podcast too, was what advice if they wanted to look at different specialties, is to reach out to different doctors, because I think a lot of doctors would like to tell their story. What made that neurosurgeon be that neurosurgeon, or the OBGYN be that, or the neurologist, and maybe just ask a couple of questions, and then they could, explore a little bit of what's their fit and how is it.
That's absolutely correct. And thank you for bringing that up. I think I skipped that question.
Yeah,
I was just listening to another physician's podcast this week, and they're already attending. So it was a different audience. But this physician had transitioned from one career path to another. And she was asking about how she chose to go into that non-clinical career. And she basically did what you said. She said she went on LinkedIn and she reached out to different people in the different types of careers and talked to them about what they liked about it and what they didn't. And she aligned that with, does this meet her values and what she's looking for? And she was able to cut out some of them. And then for the ones that she had it down to like her top 3 or something like that, she was able to explore and ask more questions that were targeted to see if it was right for her.
Right. And I think it's important. There are a lot of great groups that the students can be involved in the schools or outside, and especially like there's family medicine interest groups. One thing I forgot to mention is I am a big advocate for, helping the communities or being involved in the academy. I'm on the state. I'm the vice president of our state in South Carolina on the board. So I'm very big into that and trying to get out there and help with the students or everybody. It used to be a long time ago, any of the doctors, we owned our own practice, we would be involved with your medical societies. And I see what has happened over the shift is that now a lot of hospitals were employed by a hospital or insurance company or different. And so we're involved in those groups. And some of us have stepped away from our academies. And I'm not trying to get into political about it, but I know the Academy of Family Medicine and Pediatrics and the American Medical Association in some ways are listening more to us, and you have your groups and to be involved. And I know and I can speak mainly for family medicine, is there different ways throughout medical school or residency you can get involved and have a voice and help us, be the next generation and help us with that. And I think that's really important. And we're more open to that. And I think the associations are more open to that now than maybe than they used to be their traditional way. So I would encourage your audience to get involved with that and get on the little, like you said, groups and all too. And that would be a great way to promote. And if I can help with that, definitely let me know.
That's a great piece of advice. I know when I was in medical school, there were tons of different interest groups and things like that were connected to the larger parent groups. And not even if you don't decide to go into that particular specialty, you can shadow doctors from there and learn if it's right for you or not, or figure out how you can build relationships. They may know other doctors from other specialties. You may be able to get some letters for residency from these doctors as you become more and more involved in their missions and service. So right. There are definitely great opportunities for that. And as Dr. Durst said, there's a lot of things going on during these times, during the pandemic, during the climate crisis and all of that, where they are looking for different perspectives. And they are also looking for us to come with evidence-based medicine and advocate for the things that we believe in. So it's also a great time to get involved with advocacy.
Exactly. And I think that is so important. And right now, especially with everything that's out there, this is a great time. We are the leaders, even the medical students, especially the residents. I know your audience is more pre-med and medicine. You are a leader in that, and you do have a say, and you are in the front line of seeing what's happened, especially third and fourth year medical students. You can speak of your trials and what you see and speak out. And if anything, I think it's a great time because I think people more are into that, these days. Before it was different. And like I said, being an advocacy, and I'm very involved with different groups, the March of Dimes and different things. We're always looking for people to, like you said, get out there and help. And there's so many different ways we could do that.
Absolutely. Well, It was definitely a pleasure to have you here on this episode.
Thank you.
An opportunity to tell all the listeners goodbye.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. And, good luck with everything and keep doing the work because this is just so important for everybody. And I hope we can help a lot of other people get into medicine or decide what they want to do. It's an exciting time. Thank you for having me.
No problem. It was so
Dr. DeRouen, thank you.
It was a pleasure to have you. And for all of the listeners out there, I'll be back again next week with another wonderful guest. For now, you can just click subscribe and I'll see you then. Bye.
Each episode of the Prospective Doctor podcast is brought to you by Med School Coach. To access articles, videos, webinars, and free tools to help you succeed on your journey toward med school and beyond, visit our website, prospectivedoctor.com. We hope you tune in again next time.